A few years back on YouTube, there was a general consensus that online fame does not last forever. One minute a creator could be on the top of the world, but we all knew it would only be a matter of time before they were out on the streets as they lost relevance and the views dried up. While it's true that this website can be very fickle, I think it's about time to explore a topic that's not often brought up. That there are YouTubers that will be able to maintain successful channels until the day they die. For every 10 YouTubers that all but disappeared from existence, there's usually one that persevered with a fan base intact. And since these still relevant early creators have been in the business since the mid-2000s, many are now hitting their late 30s and early 40s, which would jokingly be referred to as boomers by some. I think on the internet, people have been stuck in a mindset that things come and go. Netscape was beat out by Internet Explorer, then Internet Explorer was beat out by Chrome. Or how MySpace beat out Friendster before they both were replaced by Facebook. We're stuck in the thinking that the internet is ever changing, but I believe we're hitting a point of maturation, where some things are sticking around for good. As Google, Amazon, and Facebook continue to grow, buying out all potential competition, things have become a bit more stable, and that security can also be seen on YouTube. Dying YouTube channels like to complain that the algorithm is killing their channel, but between you and me, the way Google picks content is more consistent than ever before in the site's history. Excluding their nonsense shadow banning practices and promotion of the mainstream media, the site has become really good at showing the viewer the content that they're really interested in. And believe it or not, some older channels are still doing well. Today I'd like to talk specifically about 3 accounts that I feel have sustained for a decade and have enough energy to last at least a decade more if they wanted to. Red Letter Media, The Angry Video Game Nerd, and The Nostalgia Critic. No matter which of these 3 you like or dislike the most, there is no denying that each one has had similar career histories and are currently making content to a loyal audience, many of which who have stuck around for over 10 years. Almost all other creators from the time period that they started now have dead accounts, so I thought it would be interesting to explore each one of these accounts to determine what they did differently to have such a lasting impact in an industry known for giving people only 15 minutes of fame. Let me start off with one of my personal favorite channels, Red Letter Media, comprised of Mike J and the world-famous Rich Evans. Their big break online was the Mr. Plinkett character created in 2008 that did in-depth comedy critiques of films, most famously the prequel trilogy, that at the time went viral, gathering millions of views. Since then, they developed more personality-driven shows like Review, Half in the Bag, Best of the Worst, and Nerd Crew. Their sense of humor seeps into all of these endeavors. In the case of a channel like Red Letter Media, while it's true that they really haven't mixed up their formula that much in recent years, that's mainly because they don't have to. They may not have the most flashy of thumbnails and titles, but what is offered is long-form content watched by a loyal audience that click on videos because of the personalities showcased within. I love just how detached they are from the rest of the YouTube community. I've seen dozens of creators, many of which had millions of fans, show their adoration for Red Letter Media online, but I rarely see them ever responding back. While there's a lot to be said about networking, Mike J and Rich being so far removed from the rest of the online landscape has helped them stay away from drama as well as adding a unique charm to their channel. I think one reason they have such a loyal fan base is people appreciate their unbridled cynicism to much of what they do. They subject themselves to horrendous movies for the purpose of mocking them. They trash Star Wars and nerd culture surrounding the series as their audience eggs them on. And Mike's relentless teasing of Chris Evans is some of the funniest content on the internet. They may not have the biggest channel on YouTube, but it could be argued that they do have the most consistent. Next up, I want to cover The Angry Video Game Nerd, which is by far the most popular show on Cinemassacre. James invented the character in the mid-2000s when online video was still in its infancy, and with some actual understanding of filmmaking, he quickly made one of the most innovative as well as influential programs on the entire internet. You can argue that he created the angry review as we know it today. It's clear that the character has matured a bit over the years, along with the audience, but they have stuck around throughout it all. Despite hiatuses and platform changes, episodes of AVGN still pull in millions of views. A very impressive accomplishment. Just like Red Letter Media, his fans have stuck around since the early days. To many, including myself, I can barely think of a time on the internet before the nerd character. That's not to say there isn't any other content on Cinemassacre. In fact, James has a whole team helping him make other shows to fill in the gaps in the upload schedule, where they discuss movies, TVs, and games. This content doesn't bring in as many views, but it has enough of a following to justify its existence next to the premiere show. As long as they keep it up, I think his channel has a ton of life left in it. Finally, the third, and let's be honest, the most divisive of the channels I wanted to discuss today is the Nostalgia Critic, played by Doug Walker. What the Angry Video Game Nerd did for reviewing old games, the Nostalgia Critic did for reviewing old movies. With a signature outfit and an off-white blank wall behind him, he'd tear into some of the worst films from his childhood. Unlike the other two channels discussed, which get glowing praise, a lot of people have turned on the Nostalgia Critic throughout the 2010s, saying that the show's bad now or that it was never good to begin with. Well, to see if that second statement was true, I pulled up some of Doug's earlier reviews that I haven't watched in a decade, and can say that I still found humor in them, although I didn't remember the echo being so horrendous.
Hello, I'm the Nostalgia Critic. I remember it so you don't have to. You know, Hollywood has a talent for taking symbols of our cherished childhood and smashing them into indescribable amounts of fecal matter, and nowhere is that more prominent than in the horrors of the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
To this very day, I see the charm in those early videos. They were fast-paced, the jokes didn't overstay their welcome, and as far as 2009 standards, that was actually really good content. Skip forward to today, however, and the videos are a bit more bloated, with a lot more sketch comedy from other characters. If you go and watch something like The Wall Review, you'll quickly realize it's a completely different show now, but they still have plenty of fans, with each episode getting 500,000 views apiece. Not as good as Cinemassacre or Red Letter Media, but it's a miracle that they're still around with everything they've been through. I may go a bit more in-depth on the subject at a later date, but this is a brand that has been through a whole lot. Nostalgia Critic was essentially banned from YouTube because of copyright problems over a decade ago, so they had to move their content to their own websites. And when Doug tried ending the character around 2012, his views tanked, so he had to bring it back with more skits to appease his creative side. Then they proceeded to change their website's name, leading to the removal of all their high rankings and search results, causing views to tank again. When YouTube stopped deleting movie reviews so freely, they tried doing a YouTube collective called the League of Super Critics, which fell apart. Then Doug just made his own account. Then the Change the Channel initiative started in an attempt to get people to turn on the Nostalgia Critic as well as the bigger brand Channel Awesome, which leads us to where we're at now. Reading that out loud makes me realize just how much of a miracle it is that this show is still going strong. It's true that viewership has been going down a bit, but even if they need to downsize their production, I don't see Doug going away anytime soon, since he, just as the two other channels listed in this video, have fan bases that have stuck around throughout all of the highs and lows, and will probably still be around for another 10 years. One commonality between all three groups I found interesting is their yearning to make feature-length films. No matter if it's Space Cop, Angry Video Game Nerd the movie, or To Boldly Flee, I feel that these guys had aspirations to be legitimate filmmakers, but came to terms with the fact that online video wasn't a stepping stone to greater things, but rather was a great thing in and of itself. They found a large group of people online that weren't being catered to in the mainstream media who wanted to hear their thoughts on movies and video games, so they took advantage of that. They weren't trying to simply cash in on the latest trend or make quick and easy videos to build up an easily distracted teenage audience. Plenty of others did that, and they're all gone now. With mature audiences that have stuck around throughout the 2010s, I think there's something to learn from Mr. Plinkett, the Angry Video Game Nerd, and the Nostalgia Critic, to show that it is in fact possible to have a sustainable career as an online content creator.
Votre toast, je peux